Oh my God, get in here, hurry up, please. Somebody got shot. Somebody just shot him. Help on the way, ma'am. Please get in. Please get in.
On August 17th, 2020, at exactly 10:09 p.m., this frantic 911 call was made in Mobile, Alabama.
Please. Got one male down. Looks like multiple gunshot wounds.
The call painted a clear picture. This wasn't just a shooting. It was something far more sinister. The victim was 48-year-old Maurice Timmons, a man whose story met a tragic end. But what the police didn't realize was that the real killer wasn't far away. He'd been secretly hiding near the victim's house, waiting for the perfect moment. This case, which has never been covered on YouTube, was about to take a dark and unexpected turn.
Who do you think shot Maurice?
Whoever she was on the boat.
Did she call somebody over there to handle Maurice?
Just moments after the first call, the intensity of the situation was raised by another harrowing 911 call reporting the same gruesome crime.
Quiet with the emergency. I heard 2 shots and I looked at the one. I see somebody down on the ground.
Can you tell if it's male or female?
Male.
All right, well, I'm sending the paramedics to help you now.
Paramedics were dispatched to the scene and as they did their best to stabilize the injured man, the woman who made the initial 911 call continued to plead for help.
Please. Got one male down. Looks like multiple gunshot wounds.
Can you advise my presence?
Don't know at the time. I'll be right to USA.
25 to that University Hospital.
The man was rushed to the emergency room at the University of South Alabama Medical Center, but tragically succumbed to his wounds shortly after reaching the hospital. The shooting had now turned into a homicide. The police were informed, and within minutes, a team of detectives and forensic examiners were prepared to head to the scene of the crime. The first thing they did was identify the victim as 48-year-old Maurice Timmons, a hydroblast technician who was born and raised in the town of Mobile. The 2 women who had made the first 911 call identified themselves as his fiancée and her friend. When the pair were asked about what had happened and if they'd seen anything, they revealed that they'd been exiting the parking lot when the shooting happened.
About that time, she said she hears 3 gunshots. I said, we're gonna go check on Maurice because Maurice was in that area. They come back to the apartment and they see Maurice laying.
While this didn't help the police much, they still had another witness, the first 911 caller. They quickly moved to interview him as well to learn if he knew of any pertinent information, and what he divulged would leave them shocked.
Can you tell me kind of what you heard or saw?
I seen him laying down beside the car. And then that's when I picked up the phone about 911. I heard the car spin off from that way.
You heard a car sped up. Was that right after the shot?
Yeah.
Gotcha. What did it look like?
I don't know. It just spin off.
Did you hear one shot and then a pause and then another shot?
Yeah, it didn't go pause, and pause. And then pause.
Okay. You didn't hear anything before the shooting?
There's a wooden gate back there. Must come through that gate.
The witness had given them key information, and the police now set about examining the crime scene, hoping for anything that could help them in their investigation. Almost immediately, they noticed a CCTV camera that pointed right at the area where the body was found. Could this horrific shooting have been caught on camera? They sent out a request for the footage, hoping it would be the break they needed. 223 shell casings at the scene that pointed at a grim truth.
So what all was collected from the scene?
All we collected was 2 fired .223 caliber casings.
Rifle foul.
You don't just walk around the streets in one of those.
The fact that the killer had used a rifle and not a handgun indicated that they were well versed in the usage of firearms. Could this have been a professional hitman executing a contract? They would need to learn more about Maurice and who may have wanted to hurt him. His fiancée was taken down to the station for further questioning, as they hoped she'd be able to shed further light on his background and life. As the detective sat down with Maurice's fiancée, they began by asking her some basic questions about her relationship and Maurice in general, hoping she'd be able to provide them with some relevant details.
How long have you and Maurice been in a relationship?
We've been in a relationship almost 3 years.
So y'all been staying in the same apartment?
Yes, sir.
She also revealed the heart-wrenching information that Maurice, the youngest of 13 siblings, had been the primary caretaker of his aged mother. Even more tragically, he had a son who had now been left without a father. She also mentioned that he'd been on probation for a drug-related offense. Thinking that maybe someone from this world may be involved, they moved on to question her about the day of the murder.
Just take me through your day-to-day.
Went to see Maurice's probation officer. His number got called.
For drug screening?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we went up there, they said it wasn't good enough. His urine was clear.
Even though he appeared to have tested negative for substances, the probation officers had told Maurice he'd have to return again for a subsequent drug screening. This would lead to further tension soon after.
And then when we got back home, a couple hours later, he started saying that the crackers got him fucked up. He asked, he shouldn't have to go back up there. And that it irritated me because when he said cracker, he looked dead in my face. Mm-hmm. Get out with that crap. Just go somewhere. I don't care. Just go somewhere. He left. He left willingly. I sat there and just laid there on the bed watching TV.
She then started to explain why her friend had been with her at the scene of the crime. She'd come to pick up her car that had been parked in the driveway of their home. But what she said next made the officers sit up sharply.
She parked her car. She came in the house. By the time he came back, we were leaving to go get cigarettes. When we went to go pull out, we heard pop, pop. And she hit the gas and took off. We went up to the gas station. And I figured it was the apartments next door. Because sometimes they'll be stupid and shoot in the air.
It seemed the fiancé and her friend had been close enough to hear the shots being fired, but thinking it was their neighbors, they had decided to continue their trip to the gas station as originally planned. But as she continued talking, she would let them in on the extremely distressing situation they'd encountered on their return.
When we got back, and as soon as I seen Maurice, I got out the car, and then I noticed he was bleeding. I took my shirt off and tried to hold it down, and I called 911. I kept trying to pull his head up, get him to talk to me. His eyes were just looking around. He wasn't saying nothing. And then from there, they took him, and that's the last time I see him. They went away.
From what she described, it was likely that she and her friend had not witnessed anything of note to the investigation, but the detectives would still make sure to double-check.
So, you didn't see anybody?
I didn't see anybody.
Despite her seeming not to know anything, the detectives asked her to wait for a few moments until they cleared her to leave. At this point in the investigation, the detectives were unsure about how to proceed next, but just then, they received the CCTV footage from the camera they'd spotted at the crime scene. This footage could hold the key to everything. As they began to review the footage around the time of the 911 call, they saw Maurice near his car getting ready to leave. Then they saw the back gate the neighbor had pointed to being shaken, as if someone was trying to break in. Maurice, hearing the commotion, moved towards the gate to see what was happening. Seconds later, a man in a black ski mask and holding a rifle broke through the gate and, rounding the turn, gunned down Maurice in cold blood as he scrambled to escape. As Maurice was being murdered in this inhumane manner, the detectives noted a chilling detail. The car which pulled out of the driveway after the shooting had occurred had two individuals seated in it. The detectives were shocked to see that it was Maurice's fiancée and her friend.
And then there's the execution stop. You're good. They sit in the car.
Yeah, they're in the car.
This left the detectives baffled. Why had his fiancée lied to them? Was she involved in the murder? With many questions that needed answers, the detectives headed to interview her for a second time, now with their own evidence to refute her earlier story.
If she's blocking it out or she's lying to us, because there's no way she didn't see him get shot.
This time, as they sat down with her again, the detectives abandoned the friendly demeanor they displayed with her earlier, hoping to pressure her into giving them the information she was hiding.
Man, you seem like a nice person, okay? You really do. And I'm going to be as blunt as I can. Stop the bullet. This is on video. There's no reason for you to do what you're doing in this situation.
I didn't see him get shot.
There's no way you didn't see the shooter.
Really, honestly, I didn't see who did it. I didn't see anybody. I didn't.
Despite their efforts and the clear evidence they had against her, Maurice's fiancée still insisted that she had not seen anything. Seeing their strategy wasn't working, the detectives decided to change their approach, but they could never have expected how well it would work.
Who do you think shot Maurice? I don't know if I have to guess. However, she was on the phone.
The fiancé dropped a bombshell on the investigators. She stated that her friend had been on the phone with a man right before the shooting and suggested that this individual may have been the shooter. The detectives were unsure whether this was a ploy to take suspicion away from herself, but they decided to question her further about this mysterious man.
I know what she was saying.
All she said when she was on the phone is Maurice is kicking at the door. That's all I heard her saying. And who do you think she was on the phone? I really think that it was Marco.
Out of nowhere, she'd given the suspect a name. The detectives were now desperate to learn more about who Marco could be.
Why do you think that Marco was on? Wow. I think I heard her say his name on the phone. Marco? What's his last name? I honestly don't know.
With the fiancée saying she knew nothing more, the detectives needed more information. It was time to speak to her friend, the person who had allegedly called Marco to the scene. She was called to the station for an interview, but the detectives could never have expected the dark rabbit hole they were about to go down.
What's a good phone number for you?
Lost my phone.
When'd you lose it?
Tonight during all the commotion.
Oh, really? Tell me what happened tonight.
Then the friend revealed a shocking angle the police had completely missed.
I was just gonna get in my car, go. I know it's usually the domestic violence thing between them two. They always bust somebody behind them. She'd always go on the phone up crying about it. Tonight, I'm getting about the same thing.
She disclosed chilling details about Maurice and his fiancée's relationship, shedding light on the events leading up to the crime.
I look over and I hear her at the door. He's beating on the door. She had a little pocket knife. I got her out of the car. They don't agree on the and stuff. And she opened the door. I told her, come on. There's no sense in arguing with them. But I'm just saying, no, whatever you're saying is drunk. Next thing you know, I don't hear anything. You have to go out and check, see if he's still here. Come on, let's go to the store. We're sitting there in the parking lot. People say, can't. I see him get up and walk across. And then he looks around the corner. When he looks around the corner,
She kept explaining everything in detail, making the terror of the moment even more real.
and I seen him. It's reversed. When I'm pulling out and I look back, all I see is somebody in the mat. Just a black man. I got down where the patient is. I turned around. What the hell? Call 911. We gotta see if he's okay. But we're going down the street screaming.
During the interrogation, she gave the police a crucial piece of information. Before the shooting, she'd called a friend named Bill.
His name is
Bill what?
Bill Hudson. That's the name.
But the police had already learned the name Marco in the fiancé's interview, so they came right out and asked her directly.
I need you to be 100% honest with me. Okay, because I don't know who this Bill guy is, but his name's Marco.
Any reason why you wouldn't have called him Marco?
Because I never do.
Then came the shocking twist. The police realized that Bill and Marco were the same person.
So, as her best friend, by you staying there shows that you're willing to protect her.
I didn't orchestrate any of that.
Let me ask you this question. Did you call somebody and have a specific conversation about Maurice knocking on the door?
No, that never happened.
And what does Marco do?
He got the people recycle.
What kind of truck does he drive?
It's red, like a red. I don't know, shit.
And what does Marco look like?
Light skin.
How tall?
I don't know, it's on there.
The cops began to consider a new possibility. If the domestic abuse was real, could the fiancée have hired the killer herself? They decided to interrogate the fiancé again, but approached with caution, knowing how sensitive domestic violence cases can be.
Since we've been gone, we've interviewed a few more people. You need to be 100% honest with me. So we are going to start back over. I want you to know how important it is because this is going to be your last chance. At any time, did he try to come in the car or assault you?
I don't think he tried. He didn't try to hit me or whatever.
So I'm going to ask you just as blatant as I can. Did she call somebody over there to handle Maurice?
I think so.
But the investigation took another turn. The fiancé's demeanor began to shift. Then she dropped another bombshell. Maybe it was her friend who sent Marco. Maybe she and Marco had planned the cold-blooded murder together.
All she said, he was only supposed to get scared. That's all she said.
What do you think that means? I mean, you're an intelligent woman.
That maybe she was talking to Marcos, trying to have him scare Maurice. That's my assumption, is that she had said something to Marcos about scaring Maurice.
Well, from here, we're going to continue our investigation. We're going to talk to Marco.
At this point, the police were unsure of whom to trust. With no clear answers, they turned their focus to their only lead, Marco. Digging through records, they finally identified him as Marco Carson. His file painted a troubling picture. He'd previous convictions for discharging a weapon and receiving stolen property. When they confronted the friend with his photo, she confirmed that it was indeed Marco. The police launched a search for Marco, determined to track him down. They called his boss, hoping for a lead on his whereabouts.
How you doing? I'm a detective with the police department, and currently we are in the middle of an investigation where an employee of yours is a person of interest that we need to. Marco Carson. It is a serious situation.
I can tell you where he's around.
If you can send me those addresses, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Marco's boss gave the police exactly what they needed, his location. Wasting no time, they moved in and found him. He was brought in for interrogation.
Mr. Carson, I do want to talk to you about an investigation that we're conducting, okay, where your name's come up as possibly having some information for me, okay? So take me through your day yesterday. What time did you wake up?
Myself.
What did you do yesterday? Did you work? Who all worked with you yesterday?
But first of all, me by myself. And like my friend, she came to help.
What time did you clock out of work last night?
Myself.
So you dropped the trailer off, and then where'd you go?
My friend.
Who's your friend?
But Marco had an alibi. He claimed he was with another woman in Chickasaw, 10 miles from the crime scene.
What time did you arrive there?
I can't even remember. It was 9 or something.
How long did you stay?
Stayed all night.
Did you go anywhere else?
Now, the police got to the main question, the phone call. If Marco was nowhere near the crime scene, then who was really on the other end of that call?
Now, did you call? She said that what's her name sent up that crime, so she said she was going to stay and help. You remember what time she called you? That was a couple minutes later. Do you know the girl when she say her friend? Do you know what she's talking about? I know. Like hanging out or anything like that. No, I don't try to. Gotcha. With the conversation last night, did you hear him at all? When the guy kind of in the background? I don't know, I'm trying to pay attention. No, I get that. I get that. Let me ask you this question. Did you ever go last night? Outside the club? I ain't got no reason to go back over there. I got you. Now, the phone that you had last night, you mind if I just look at it just to see what time she called you, the text messages that she sent?
At this point, detectives were looking for anything solid to either clear Marco or confirm their suspicions. And like any suspect trying to avoid trouble, Marco had an alibi, or at least he claimed he did. He told the police that on the night of the murder, he'd been with a female friend. That, of course, was something investigators needed to verify.
Just made contact with our suspect's alibi, so we're going to go see what she has to say about his whereabouts.
Police tracked this woman down, hoping she could provide a clear timeline, one that either backed Marco's story or completely unraveled it. If she remembered exactly when he'd been with her, and it lined up with the time of the crime, then Marco would be in the clear. But if there were gaps in her memory or inconsistencies in the details, it could mean he'd been lying. Detectives reached out to the woman and she agreed to talk. Now the question was, would her story match?
And how long have you known Marco? Not that long, probably about 3 or 4 months. I did class with him a few times. But, I made it clear that I didn't want to be in a relationship with him because, still trying to get to know him. Did he get into trouble or something?
Did you see him?
I did.
And what time did you see? Honestly.
It was between 8 and 10 before I went to work.
She told investigators that, yes, Marco had been with her that night. But here's the problem. She couldn't recall exactly when. That tiny but crucial detail was missing. And in an investigation like this, where time was everything, not being able to pin down an exact moment made a big difference. If Marco had been with her at the time of the crime, then he couldn't have been involved. But since she couldn't remember the time, detectives knew he was still in play. He hadn't been ruled out just yet.
You remember what he was wearing?
That's a lime green shirt and blue pants.
Now, has he talked to you and said, hey, police are probably going to call you and you need to tell them this?
No, I had no idea he was there.
Now, have you ever seen him with a gun?
Have I seen him with a gun? No.
Appreciate you talking to us.
After speaking with her, detectives didn't get the confirmation they'd been hoping for. Marco's alibi was shaky. There was no way to prove he hadn't been at the scene of the crime when it happened, so for now, he remained a suspect.
So we talked to Marco's alibi. She states that he came over last night, but it looks like right now we're going to have to let him go.
Jacob.
Yep.
He might have though.
Not yet. Unless she comes off it. She has to say she called him over there.
Marco's alibi was full of holes, and detectives knew they couldn't rule him out just yet. That meant going back to someone who might be holding onto crucial information, his fiancé's friend. By now, investigators had a gut feeling she knew more than she was saying. This wasn't just another routine round of questioning. They started applying pressure, pushing her to come clean. If she was hiding something, they were determined to crack her. One way or another, they were determined to get to the truth.
I don't need to have you down here and put you in the position that you've been put in. I don't want to do that to you. I'm just sorry for you, honestly. If I've gotten one thing from you, I've gotten that you're strong. You know why? Because you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Because you want to solve everybody else's problems. That's exactly what you're doing in this situation right now. Put somebody in a compromising position like you're in right now. Separate me from my wife and kids more than 5 minutes and watch what I do.
She knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. The truth was weighing on her, and the detectives noticed. Her hesitation and nervousness were becoming more obvious. And then she finally said it.
Is that when you text Marco and told me that he was beating on your car?
Yeah. I'm tired. I'm so tired.
And let me ask you this question. Did you call anybody outside of Marco?
I don't have anybody else to call.
And you were supposed to scare him.
That's all she wanted.
This changed everything. She wasn't just some innocent bystander caught in the middle. She had actively reached out to Marco. From the detective's perspective, things were starting to fall into place. Why had she called him? What was his reason for being there? The puzzle pieces were finally coming together, revealing a clearer picture. That's when a chilling realization set in. This wasn't just a random encounter. The killer had secretly hidden near the victim's house, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Marco wasn't just at the scene. He had been summoned there. But even with the fiancé's friend admitting she called Marco, it wasn't enough. Detectives needed solid proof, something that directly linked him to the crime.
I don't think we have enough to arrest him. Because his face is completely covered, we can only assume this is Marco. We're going to need something like cell tower records or a gun.
It seemed like Marco had come to the scene simply to intimidate and scare Maurice. So why had he ended up killing him? The answer, detectives suspected, lay in Marco's past. He had a history of aggressive outbursts and a dangerously short temper. Had he lost control in a fit of rage, turning a threat into a brutal murder? So detectives took the next step, digging into something that couldn't lie or change its story. Marco's phone records. If he had been anywhere near the scene that night, his phone would have left a digital footprint, one that could finally expose the truth.
We just need just a little bit more. I'm going to type up search warrants for the phones and the cell tower locations.
And when the results finally came in, they pointed detectives in a direction they couldn't ignore.
The location his phone pings at on Virginia Street is less than half a mile away from where the crime scene actually is. He lied to us about where he was at during the time of the shooting. His cell phone puts him in the area near the crime scene 10 minutes prior to the shooting. All the evidence is pointing towards him. We'll be seeking an arrest warrant for murder for Marco.
At this point, all the evidence was stacking: the shaky alibi, the inconsistencies in his story, and now the cell tower records. Everything pointed straight to Marco. Adding to the case, the fiancé's friend's interrogation revealed a crucial detail. She'd asked Marco to scare Maurice, not to kill him. But with the way events unfolded, detectives had seen enough. It was time to make their move. They would be seeking an arrest for murder. As detectives moved forward with the case against Marco, they knew there was one more crucial step: speaking with the victim's family. They had lost a loved one, and now they wanted answers. But investigators also had a duty to ensure they got justice, not just assumptions. So they sat down with the family, updating them on the case, the suspect, and what would happen next.
First off, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Joshua Coleman. I'm the lead investigator in this case. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Where y'all at with it?
We've developed at least one suspect. There was only one person who shot him. Believe we've identified that person, so we're working right now to prove that that person did it.
We don't want whoever did this to walk free because they took away somebody we all really love. He didn't deserve what happened.
Oh, most definitely. Once I make the arrest, I'm going to make a phone call and let y'all know that we've arrested, somebody in the case. If y'all hear something, call me.
With the evidence stacked against Marco, the detectives were ready to make their move.
Got approved for the murder warrant for Marco Carson. So we are now going to go and try and locate him. We believe that he's at work.
Marco was now in custody, but this wasn't over yet. Detectives weren't just looking for an arrest. They wanted the truth.
In this situation, it's really heartbreaking to hear that Marco reformed. He got his GED in prison. He took an anger management class. Marco had a great job. He did all the right things, and yet the outcome is, again, what it was before. I think he was caught up in a situation where maybe that old Marco came back. The only thing he can do now is tell the story, but that's up to him.
They brought him into the interrogation room, giving him one last chance to confess. If there was anything he wanted to say, this was the moment.
Obviously, we're back here for a reason, okay? We've continued our investigation, and we want to talk to you a little bit more. This is going to be your final opportunity before this all goes to court to tell your side of the story. Right now, somebody else is writing your story. You feel what I'm saying? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. You understand those rights they've been read to you? Is that yes? Okay.
That would be inside my right.
So if that's the choice that you make, then that's fine. Have a good day.
Even with all the evidence against him, Marco didn't break. There was no confession, no explanation, just silence. It was the last chance he had to tell his side of the story, and he chose to say nothing. After years of investigation, countless hours of police work, and a courtroom filled with anticipation, Marco Carson finally went to trial for the murder of Maurice Timmons in February 2023. Prosecutors believed they'd built a strong case, cell phone records, witness statements, and a timeline that put him in the area. But when it came time to present everything in court, things didn't go as expected. Before Carson's defense team could even call a single witness, the judge made a stunning decision, throwing out the murder charge entirely. Mobile County Circuit Judge Jay York ruled that the prosecutors simply didn't have enough evidence to take the case to a jury. It was a rare move, especially in a high-profile case like this, but in the judge's eyes, there just wasn't enough to prove Carson had pulled the trigger. Carson's attorney, Shaly Tillsdale, wasn't surprised. She argued from the beginning that there was nothing truly tying her client to the crime. The prosecution's biggest piece of evidence, his cell phone pinging off a downtown tower, didn't prove he was at the scene. And without anything stronger, the judge had no choice but to dismiss the case. Prosecutors, however, saw it differently. Mobile County District Attorney Keith Blackwood stood by the work his team had done, saying they believed the evidence was enough for conviction. But the judge's ruling meant it would never even make it that far. Despite the acquittal, Carson wasn't walking free. Because he'd been on parole for an unrelated crime at the time of his arrest, his parole was revoked. Instead of heading home after beating the murder charge, he was still sitting behind bars, this time for a completely different reason. The prosecutors and detectives have not given up. They hope to find more evidence to conclusively take Marco to trial in the future. For Maurice Timmons' family, the ruling meant that for now, justice remains out of reach. The man accused of his murder would not face a jury, and the case that once seemed to have a clear suspect was now left with more questions than answers. For Maurice Timmons' family, the courtroom ruling they'd hoped for. The evidence against Marco Carson wasn't enough to convict him, and the case was dismissed before it even reached a jury. But that doesn't change the fact that Maurice is gone, his life stolen in an act of violence, and his loved ones left with a wound that time can never fully heal.
Maurice was my uncle. Maurice was loved by all of his nieces and nephews, and he was the baby of the 13 kids that my grandmother and grandfather had. This is like really, really hard for all of us. We called him the weekend guy because he would like work Monday through Friday, but he'd come out on a Saturday. He'd just sit there the whole time, janking and talking and laughing. Hopefully somebody is brought to justice.
चले यार मैंने कहा वीडियो बना ले कैसी चल रही है वीडियो बना के अपनी जिंदगी की मेहरबानी है और सुनाए आप लोग खैरियत है सब खैरियत सब सेट चल रहा है माशाल्लाह सब खैरियत है सेट चल रहा है माशाल्लाह से खैरियत है हमने कहा यार बाहर निकलते हैं लाइट शाइट खोलते हैं वीडियो बना के अरे ये क्या हाल है ज़िंदगी के सफ़र में हमें एक साथ चलना है ज़िंदगी हो न हो ज़िंदगी की मेहरबानी है ज़िंदगी है बड़ी देर में वीडियो बनती है भाई वीडियो बड़ी देर में बनती है हम अगर अंदर जाते हैं वीडियो बनाते हुए बड़ी देर में वीडियो बनती है यार ऊपर चढ़ रहे ऊपर जा रहे हैं ऊपर चढ़ रहे हैं ऊपर जा रहे हैं जा रहे हैं ये हम अपने अलग रूम में आ गए लाइटें खोलते हैं गर्मी हो रही है यार दोस्तों गर्मी का मौसम बड़ा पटाख होता है पटाख और सुनाएं आप लोग खैरियत हैं गर्मी हो रही है गर्मी की वजह से मैं बड़ा वो शरीर गर्मी हो रही है शरीर गर्मी हो रही है देख रहे हैं मुझे पसीना आ रहा है यार जल्दी से पूरी हो जा पसीना आ रहा है देख रहे हैं आप लोग मुझे गर्मी हो रही है मैंने फ़ैन खोला है फ़ैन की आवाज़ तो आप लोगों को आ रही होगी फ़ैन मैंने अभी खोला है ऑन किया है फ़ैन को और अब हम क्या करें क्या ना करें कुछ नहीं करें अब रोक दें वीडियो को बन गई बस